We're here to talk to the community, Parish of DeSoto, who is served by Water District Number 1, and anyone else who's concerned about their water, to discuss the amoeba that was found in the water system.
Okay, what is your suggestion for people living here? What should they be doing about it?
What we've learned about this amoeba is it rarely causes infection. When it does, it's a very serious infection. But to cause infection, it has to go up the nose. So getting water up the nose to where it burns next to the brain is the only way the amoeba will infect the brain. If you drink it, it doesn't cause any problems. So making sure that they don't get this water up their nose until we can assure them there are no more amoeba in the water.
This comes from tap water or lake water? What kind of...
Amoeba lives in fresh water. It lives in ponds and lakes. It's everywhere in southern states. It loves heat. Sometimes it'll get in your drinking water, and usually chlorine will kill it. But what we found, and this is new in this country because we've never had this before, is that if the chlorine's at a low level or gets down real low out in the system, then that will not kill the amoeba. So the amoeba, wherever a pipe breaks, wherever there's a compromise of the system, if they get in and there's not enough chlorine, they'll thrive. And now we're finding in water systems. When I asked CDC, well, what about other water systems in this country? They're not checking for amoeba. Mm-hmm. The only time they check for the amoeba is when they've had a death. There's been 32 amoeba infections in the past 10 years, so they don't do it very often at all. It's a very complicated test. So they don't know the answer as to how many systems would have amoeba, because what they suggest is that what we do know is that if you get the chlorine to a certain level, the amoeba can't live. So it's easier to focus on the chlorine than it is try to focus on the amoeba.
If you think you're infected, what would some of the symptoms be? Are there any?
At first it starts like flu, about a day or so. Then you get a stiff neck, kind of like meningitis, severe headache, and then you get sick real quick. So once you get the infection, it's not a question whether you have it or not, because it progresses quickly, you know you have it. So a lot of people who might think, well, I might have a mild infection, that's not the way the amoeba works. If it gets in the brain, you get sick very quickly, and you know you have it. But if people have symptoms and they're not sure, they can check with their medical provider. But again, this is a very rare disease.
Is there a test that they can run for it, or are they just going to go in and think it may be the flu and then give them some antibiotics? Or
the test, you'd have to find the amoeba, and where it's going to be is in the brain. So the only way to find it would be to do a spinal tap.
Okay.
And it's not necessary to do if you don't have the symptoms. So getting flu-like symptoms, I don't want everybody with the flu getting a spinal tap.
Yeah, especially this time of year. So what are your recommendations for people living here?
Making sure that they use the water, feel comfortable using the water, but just don't use it in a neti pot, don't use it up their nose. If there's still some pools around, not letting children dunk their heads in the pools, not getting water up their noses as best they can.